What a win by the Indiana Pacers, who are now 500. The 5-5 Pacers take down the New Orleans Pelicans. Complete game from the team. Myles Turner was fantastic. We'll talk about his night, the team's night as a whole. And Bennedict Mathurin didn't start despite no Duarte and no Nesmith, which some fans did not like. I want to talk about both sides of that discussion. Should Bennnedict Mathurin be starting right now? We'll talk about all that and more on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in to another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes and SI, and today we have a lot to get to. Pacers get a super impressive win at home over the New Orleans Pelicans, 129-122. How'd they get it done? Who stepped up? And one of the guys who stepped up, Myles Turner, a career night. We'll break down his game, what went well for him, how the Pacers kept going to him in a way that they usually don't, and what it could mean going forward. And then Duarte out, Nesmith out, and Mathurin still doesn't start. What's going on with that? Fans think he should have started in this game. I want to talk about his role and what makes sense and what doesn't for him in terms of finally starting versus coming off the bench. Let's talk about this game first, and let's be the only Indy sports podcast today that does not talk about Jeff Saturday or Jim Irsay or the Indianapolis Colts and their crazy day yesterday. Go check out Locked On Colts. But here we're talking about the Pacers and their impressive win with Herb Simon, their owner, in the building. Pacers improved to 5-5, 129-122 win over the Pelicans, a 7-point win, and early signs of this game kind of suggested this is how this game would go. First of all, the Pacers, who win by 7, start off up 7-0 for a team that has really struggled with starts. It was one of their better defensive starts for a while. I think it took the Pelicans like 3 minutes to actually score, which was also interesting because this game featured some funky cross matches. I was thinking before this game, and I even put it in my game preview story, wow, Jalen Smith versus Zion is going to be tough. You know, Jalen Smith, he's pretty quick, but defending a guy with that much strength and power, I think, is going to be pretty hard for him. And then the Pacers said, nah, Rick Carlisle's not doing that. You know, he's not going to put Jalen Smith on Zion. Instead, Buddy Hield is on Brandon Ingram, which kind of worked for a while. Tyrese Halliburton on Herb Jones, Andrew Nembhard on CJ McCollum, who ends up starting, by the way. Nembhard's first start of his career. Turner on Zion, and then Smith on Valanciunas to open the game. And that was dynamic as the game progressed, but no, Carlisle had to get creative, and it worked. It really worked. They slowed down the Pelicans starting 5 in this game. That unit did, and I was very impressed with the way the Pacers were able to slow those guys down. Pelicans bench, all positives and plus minus. Pelicans starters, all negatives, because the Pacers did a pretty good job. CJ McCollum goes 3 for 11. Ingram has an off first half, right? They slowed down Zion as much as you possibly can. So the opening defense was really impressive. Even with those tricky cross matches, the Pacers found a way for that to be successful, which was really tricky when looking at, you know, how they were going to have to defend this team. The other early sign of this game's kind of flow, beyond the Pacers starting off with their exact margin of victory and finding the right cross matches to make this game kind of tip in their favor, is Myles Turner started off awesome, right? And we'll do the whole segment on Myles Turner's awesome game. But Turner, 6 minutes in, had 7 points and 4 rebounds, right? Like, that's a good start for him. That's better than his entire Brooklyn game in 6 minutes. And okay, you know, that's a good start, but you know, he's got a tough matchup. 2 guys who kind of kick his butt, in Zion and Valanciunas. He's got to keep it up. And then by halftime, he had 18 points and 8 rebounds, both numbers above his season average. He was kicking some New Orleans butt in that half, and it was kind of everywhere, right? They found him down low. He was hitting threes in the perimeter. His defense was everywhere. He had a really impressive first half, and lo and behold, the Pacers, who have been doomed by slow starts all season, jump all over the Pelicans in this first half. And even though, you know, the score, they were only up 3 at halftime, but given how the flow of the game was going, it looked very sustainable. It looked like they were in control of the game. And so with Turner having that good of a start, if he can keep it going, they can keep it going, and it did. And the Pacers sort of adjusted slightly in that third quarter, and really that's when they took this game over. 42 third quarter points for the Pacers. Probably their second best offensive quarter of the season, the only better one being the fourth quarter against the Spurs, but that one hardly counts because they had a million possessions because they were fouling Jakob Poeltl every 2 seconds. I mean, it's plausible to me to consider this third quarter their best offensive quarter of the season. flying around in transition, hitting shots from everywhere. Tyrese Halliburton, 4 out of 6 from deep in that quarter alone. He was on fire. He was hitting him with his feet pointed towards the sidelines. Isaiah Jackson. Myles Turner hit 2 threes. Jalen Smith, Buddy Hield. They got a ton of buckets from everybody. Everybody who played except for TJ McConnell, who didn't even shoot the ball, scored in this quarter. So they really got out and going that quarter. And now the Pelicans had extra possessions because the Pacers were pushing so fast. They gave up 36 points. But that sort of speed and the extra stops getting out in transition, that's what Halliburton talked about after the game, is they really wanted to start pushing it because they felt like they were getting the right shots. They were ahead. They just wanted, to keep pushing it and getting out in transition a little more. That really helped them. Caused a high pace, and there, lo and behold, they win that quarter by 6. Halliburton has 12 points that quarter. Turner has 10. They're really going. And in the fourth quarter, they could have coasted. They were up enough that their defense was actually helping them enough, but they didn't coast at all. They got their lead up to 18, and then they kind of coasted the rest of the way. They gunked the game up enough for it to be sloppy and hold on to win. So very unique game, right? The Pelicans were, to me, when I saw what they'd been starting recently, how they've been playing, I thought, oh man, the Pacers do not have the right matchups to keep up with this Pelicans team and not slow them down. The Pels shoot 41% from 3, but the Pacers still did a good job of making their life hard inside the arc, in particular, not fouling, right? That was something the Pacers have struggled with all season, is fouling. Only 17 free throw attempts for New Orleans. And the Pels, despite not turning it over, they lost the rebound battle. The Pacers win the rebound battle in this game, do a good job defending inside the arc, and find a way to get it done. So really impressive win. Like the Heat game, to me, it's a more impressive that the Pacers, they shot well from 3. I do not want to belittle that. 22 points, but they found a way to win beyond just, we shot amazing and destroy the other team. Again, 46% from deep, they'll win a lot of games, but they also found ways to, beat a good rebounding New Orleans team on the glass and defend a New Orleans team that's really good at getting to the rim, right? They scored like 80-something points in the paint the other night. So that kind of stuff is really impressive from a Pacers team that last year could not be reflexive to the other team's strategy and was really counting on hot shooting nights to get wins. So they had to tighten up down the stretch. Pelicans got it down to 8 or 7, but they just started throwing it into Myles over and over. Myles Turner, post presence in this game was not something we've seen from him very much at all recently. There it was tonight. He hit 7 2-pointers in this game on his way to 37 points, and he closed it out with some great finishing inside. Fourth quarter, 8 points for Myles Turner, none of them from 3. So impressive close from him to close this one out. And, the second half I think was interesting because two guys who, Tyrese Halliburton had a ridiculous game. So I guess saying, 20 and 13 is not a guy who will not get talked about, but the gravity of Tyrese Halliburton and Buddy Hield sort of changed this game, right? They started to draw extra eyes when they were flying around, and the Pels were scared of them shooting, and the Pacers were on fire. It makes sense. But once they started to kind of over-adjust to those guys being hot and switching a little more and sagging out of the corners a little more, that's what opened up the game for guys like Nembhard and Turner and Smith to really start going off in the second half of this game. And in the fourth quarter, TJ McConnell really starts to step up and put his stamp on the game, and that was really the dagger. Once TJ McConnell was putting buckets away, there was really not a lot left for the Pels. 6 points in the fourth quarter for McConnell, didn't miss a shot. So every Pacer did their job. I think that was really interesting in this game. Like, it was an off night for Mathurin, probably his worst offensive game of the season. He finished with 8 points on 8 shots. But everybody who played, even Mathurin, right, who played 8 points and 5 assists. 5 assists is good for him in 30 minutes. Everybody who played did their job, right? Terry Taylor set some nice screens in his limited time. Isaiah Jackson's defense was solid. TJ McConnell had 10 points and 3 assists. Like I talked about Mathurin, all the starters scored well. Like the starters, I think, were close to 100 points this game. They might have actually exceeded it now that I'm looking. They did. The Pacers starters over 100 points as a unit in this game, right? Buddy Hield hit 5 threes. Jalen Smith had 15 and 10. Turner had a career night. Halliburton, Nembhard, awesome. Like they got everybody who played did their job perfectly. There wasn't any role players struggling. There wasn't any off shooting nights. Everybody who played did their job, and that's how you beat a team like the Pelicans, who should be better than you. But the Pacers were much better on this Monday night. That's 2 impressive wins in a row for the Pacers, right? They did shoot very well against New Orleans, like I just said, but I think the way that they won, doing well with cross matchups and finding success from guys like Nembhard and McConnell that don't normally step up, and even Turner, who has been really stepping up in 4 of his performances this season, but it can be inconsistent. is interesting and an impressive win for the Pacers. That's 2 impressive wins in a row against good teams in Miami and New Orleans, and 4 out of 5. Pacers have won 4 out of 5, and they're 500. Do you know the last time the Pacers were 500? I doubt you do unless you read my Twitter feed. They were 15-15 in February of 2021 under Nate Bjorker, and they got off to that hot start. They traded Vic, and then they were not so good anymore as that season progressed. That was the last time the Pacers were a 500 ball club, unless you count 0-0. So here come the Pacers, who are quietly, I don't think that, let me be very clear right now. I'm checking that any results change this. But let me be very clear. At the time the game ended, they were 6th in the East. They are tied still for 6th in the East. I do not think that will hold one bit. Let me be very clear. But right now, look at the Pacers go as they creep around, tied with the Bulls and Knicks for that 6th spot in the East. So impressive start to the season for the Pacers, and better start than many predicted. And they get the win against a good New Orleans team. Now, the one player story of this game belongs to Myles Turner. Myles Turner was so good in this game. And in fact, I would argue, and I think you could very easily make the argument, this was the best game of his entire career. Let's talk about what Myles Turner did so well, if any of it's repeatable, and how the Pacers made it happen. But first, guys, let me talk to you about SweatBlock. As a guy who, if you can't tell by my build on YouTube, sweats quite a lot. Walking to and from Pacers games, stadium's hot, locker room's hot. I sweat a ton. My pits can get disgusting sometimes, but here comes SweatBlock to solve all of my problems. SweatBlock wipes are your little secret to confidence. The SweatBlock wipes work for up to 7 to 10 days per use. You apply them on a Sunday, you'll stay dry all week. They have a wonderful deodorant that I still haven't used. I bought it, I think, 2 times since I tried it the first time. Fantastic product. If you or someone you love is experiencing embarrassing sweat or odor, they need to try SweatBlock and all of their lovely products. They can save 20% with the promo code LOCKEDON at sweatblock.com. Also available on Amazon. Go check them out at sweatblock.com and use that promo code LOCKEDON when you check out. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your second listen, hop on over to Locked On Pelicans. Jake Madison kills it, crushing that New Orleans basketball team. He is so good at this whole podcasting thing. Here you're talking about how Zion played great, and per his analysis, they wasted a good Zion game with poor defense. And what adjustments does the Pelicans and Willie Green need to make? Jake Madison's your guy for all that. Let's talk about Myles Turner, a Pacers player who was fantastic in this game. Myles got big physically on the court and got a big ovation from the crowd. 9 minutes to go in the fourth. He checks out for the last time. He came back in later in the game, but that was his last time subbing out. Huge ovation from the crowd, clapping. I was hoping it'd be a standing ovation just for the ease of saying things, but he played so well that he got a monstrous ovation in the fourth quarter. He was really good. That's the best I've seen Myles Turner in person. And that might be the best game of his career. I asked him about that straight up after the game. I said, where does this rank in your best games ever? He said, it's up there, right? It might not be number one. It might be, he had the 16 free throw attempt game against Toronto. I forget what he finished with, 40-10 against the Wizards last year. And then this game, obviously, is way up there. 37 points for Myles Turner in this game. And it's not that he was just on fire from deep. He was finding ways to score inside, getting to the line 11 times, 12 rebounds, 3 blocks. He just did it all in this game. And so, best I've seen him in person, maybe the best of his career, depending on how you rank, the quality of opponent, rebounds as a stat, things like that. So, what happened? Well, first off, the third thing I think he did really well. Valanciunas and Zion, 2 guys he went against. Typically the type of guys that Turner struggles with a little bit, right? They're really strong. They kind of come at your chest. They're brute-like, and they're good rebounders. The Pelicans, I believe, entering this game, were number 1 or near number 1. I can check this while I'm talking. In rebounds per game. Pelicans lose the rebound battle. Not a single Pelican finishes with double-digit rebounds. Turner does with 12, right? He did a good job of boxing out, hitting guys, not being afraid to just get the effing ball, right? That's really impressive and something that throughout his career sometimes is there and sometimes, quite frankly, isn't, right? I think he knows that. In this game, he was excellent on the glass. Pelicans 7th in the NBA in rebounding, So still impressive that Myles, against 2 player types that usually crush him, he held his own and did very, very well. He wins the rebound battle against Valanciunas, against Zion, guys who normally kick his butt. Something else he did well, he made his threes early, which I think is key. Early he made the threes because as the game evolved, the Pelicans first, their kind of mini adjustment is, okay, they got to worry about Myles, right? They got to worry about Myles shooting the three. He was 4 for 7 from deep in this game, hit a couple early, right? And so they start to get reflexive. They go, uh-oh, Myles Turner went 2 for 2 from deep in the first quarter. We've got to get a little closer to him. And that opens up things for Halliburton's big third quarter and Buddy Hield's third quarter and Jalen Smith's third quarter. And then it becomes too late to adjust anymore because now Myles is feeling it. Now you're adjusting out to the other guys. But the other thing they did is in the first half, right, the Pelicans were fronting Myles Turner in the post. I don't know if I've seen that this season. Maybe it's happened and I didn't notice, but this is the first time the Pacers really punished for it. They had some beautiful entry passes down low to Myles Turner on these fronts, just throwing it right over the top of his defender. Boom, he catches, he goes up, dunk, layup, whatever. He did a great job, especially in the second quarter, of finishing those type of plays. Myles Turner in the second quarter hits 2 shots, both of them inside the arc, right? For a guy who's known as this 3-and-D type, he did very well in those situations. And so, sometimes with Turner, he gets kind of resigned to the dunker spot or the corner when teams ignore him. They couldn't in this game because he was finishing over, smaller guys when they would try to do that. And he was actually scoring from deep. So they had to figure out how they were going to guard him. And so in the second half, when Halliburton's on fire and they realize they can't defend Turner in any specific way successfully, they just said, okay, we'll switch. Herb Jones is strong. Larry Nance is a beast. If we mix him into our forward mix, we've got Zion, we've got Valanciunas. We've got the forwards to switch. And sometimes that could work against Turner, right? When he's not confident, he can be reflexive or just quickly moving the ball. Oh, he punished switches I don't think I've seen Turner like this before, especially in the fourth quarter. The Pacers, 2 possessions in a row, maybe 3, would just get the switch. Herb Jones would go on to Myles Turner, and they would just dump it to Myles in the post. He would score. It was just that easy for him. Fourth quarter, Myles Turner hits two 2-point shots, doesn't take a 3, and gets 4 free throw attempts. In the second half, in general, when he was kind of living inside a little more, right, he finished with 18 points and 8 free throw attempts, right? He did a really good job adjusting and playing in a different way where he didn't have to rely on the 3 as much because of the way the Pelicans were defending him, throwing these forwards at him that were not small enough to defend him in the post. And credit the Pacers for adjusting and saying, Myles Turner in the post is going to be our offense tonight. And he was brilliant around the basket at both drawing contact and finishing. Little baby hooks in there and mixed them up. And so the fronts weren't working. Getting on his back wasn't working, and stopping him from 3 wasn't working. He was just, quite frankly, in screen situations, Myles Turner just poked every hole in the Pelicans' defense. So, big credit to him. Now, let's go through some anecdotes. Non-stats, non-game review, right? This is just, some of this will be stats, but throughout Myles' career, confidence has always been a big piece of discussion, right? When he said this himself all the time, he thinks he plays his best when he's confident and plays a big role and how he feels like he's playing. And something I've said a lot, this is just my opinion, but something I've said a lot, there's 2 things to me that make it obvious when Myles isn't confident. There's 3 really. One is, does he kind of think when he catches the ball about what he can attack with, or does he just, no thinking, swing it to the other side and doesn't attack at all? The second thing he does is he kind of fades away a little bit on his jumper, and when he's not confident, the third thing, when he's not confident, he lays it up instead of dunking a lot, right? And in this game, he dunked twice. 2 dunks for Myles Turner on the basket. I've called it Yusuf Nurkic disease on this podcast before, but sometimes when big men have good looks at the rim and they just do a little bunny thing and miss it, it's tough. Just dunk it. Myles Turner dunked it. He just effing dunked it in this game. And that suggested to me he was playing confident, which was big. And on defense, that was clearly a factor as well. He was excellent on defense in this game, as he, typically is and can be. But 3 blocks, cracks the 1,000 block mark for his career in this game, which is crazy. All with the Pacers franchise, by the way. If you look at Zion's shooting numbers, you wouldn't know that he had a good defensive game, but he definitely had a good defensive game, slowing guys down at the rim, deterring the Pelicans, making their life harder. For a team that wants to attack so much, these are the kind of games where Myles becomes extra important on that end. Blocked Zion a few times, did well on JV. Those are tough matchups, especially given what his career has been, but he protected the paint well, right? The front court guys for the Pels kind of got theirs, but the guards could not at all. So what did this game tell us? A confident Turner is a better Turner. We've known that for all of time, basically. But On this team, right, let's go back to December last year. Myles Turner says, I feel like a glorified role player. I want to do a little more. I want a bigger role. I want to take on more, right? And this season, right, good game in Washington, bad game in Chicago, bad game in Brooklyn, right? So he starts off 2 bad games out of 3. 2 really solid performances since against Miami and New Orleans, right? This is sort of what he needed to do with more opportunity to show that he can do more than be what, as he said, his words, a glorified role player. Can he do this more consistently? I don't know. He's got a huge test later this week against the MVP. But what did this game tell us? Well, on this particular team, of course he did shoot well, which is a hit and miss thing for every player of all time, including Myles Turner. But when confident and when he has the right matchups to do this, he can be a 2-dimensional kind of player for this team that, if his shot's falling a little bit, can post up switches and then can drag that same guy out behind the 3-point line. Like, that's what this team needs. He did very well fitting with Tyrese Halliburton. I don't think this is something the Pacers can rely on all the time because his shot can be inconsistent and because teams won't often switch with him. But with the right schemes, with the right opponents, this adds an element to what the Pacers can do. Now, he's got to do it more consistently, right? 37, obviously, way out of the realm of what to expect from Turner going forward. He's only scored over 30 like 5 times in his career. But this game did show a new skill, both from the Pacers and from Turner, right? The Pacers have been horrible, even when Sabonis was their guy in the post, horrible at entry passes for years and years and years. They made like 5 or 6 beautiful ones in this game alone, right? That's an added element for both the Pacers and Turner, getting him the ball within 10 feet of the basket. They should not rely on Myles Turner's post-ups very often. That's not even a shot at Turner. That's just like general basketball analytics. But this was an added element that we hadn't really seen from Turner for a long time. And if the Pacers can add that element in ever so often or sprinkle it in when the right switches are there, that's impressive. That's something that the Pacers can be happy about from this game. And for Turner specifically, too, he always talks about, not always, but a few times he's talked about, how he feels like he's still scratching the surface of his potential. And some fans just kind of roll their eyes at that. You're an 8-year veteran. But games like this kind of show sometimes that why he feels that way, why he thinks that is the case, and makes that thought process a little more interesting. So 2 good games in a row for Turner. MVP coming in town later this week. Got to step it up. If he keeps it rolling and does well against the MVP, he'll be really on to something here. Bennedict Mathurin did not start in this game. Fans thought he should. Fans thought he would. I didn't think he would as confidently as a lot of other people did. But I understand why he would have or could have. But he didn't. Andrew Nembhard did. And I had fans of my mentions saying, this is ridiculous. And I've wanted to do a Bennedict Mathurin start, not start segment for a while. This is the perfect game to do it, where the opportunity was there and the Pacers still said no. So what does that tell us about the Pacers, and what do the numbers say, and what are clearly the motivations behind Bennedict Mathurin still coming off the bench? We'll dissect it all to close out today's Locked On Pacers podcast. But first, guys, really quickly, let me tell you about BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net, your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. They've got it all over at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts like this one, heck yeah, you can find those over at BetOnline as well. They're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. They've got football lines up for this week. No Colts, who have a bye week, thankfully, to integrate a new coach. But, Thursday Night Football, Falcons favored by 3 over the Panthers. Lots of other fun games coming up this week, and all the lines over there at betonline.net. Go check them out yourself. Head over to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in the action, because BetOnline is where the game starts. Thank you for making Locked On Pacers your first listen today and every single day. For your next listen, check out Locked On Sports Today, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day, available on Odyssey, YouTube, wherever you get podcasts, including this one. Let's finish up today's show by talking about Bennedict Mathurin, the bench player. And I don't think this is some problem. I'm very surprised at the reaction to this. So let's talk about the context here before we really dive in. Bennedict Mathurin has been coming off the bench all season. And tonight, no Chris Duarte for the Pacers. He's out for weeks. Aaron Nesmith still hurt. Maybe he's back. He'll probably be back at some point this week. Probably is a little strong. He could be back at some point this week. Either way, an opening at small forward in the Pacers starting 5. And a lot of fans apparently assumed that Mathurin would fill that spot. Now, the Pacers like their second unit, and they like to have a perimeter defender in that last starting spot. And Tyrese Haliburton just said last Friday that he thinks Andrew Nembhard's their best perimeter defender. Rick Carlisle likes having two ball handlers that can create in the starting lineup. And Bennedict Mathurin can create, to be fair. But all these factors went into play, and Andrew Nembhard started at the 3. And fans did not like it. So without the defensive wings, I get this. There's a case for Bennedict Mathurin to start. They went with Nembhard, the best defender left of the available bunch. And I don't think Mathurin's a bad defender, to be very clear. I think he's a fine defender right now. But I understand why he's below some of these other guys. But this is a lot of hoopla to say. Bennedict Mathurin didn't start. And let's talk about why he's not starting and what it kind of means about the Pacers' goals and some of the numbers involved to me in the decision that I think, I've said this to a lot of people, and I think on this show, I get why he's not starting. I think it makes sense to keep him with the bench as long as they can still maximize the other important goals for his development and for the team's development long term. Now, also, keep tonight's game out of your head because, yes, he had 8 points coming off the bench in this game. Clearly, the lineup he was a part of was not extremely successful. But that's not fair. He's come off the bench every game of his career and has done well prior to tonight. So, obviously, this is a little cloudy that he went 2 for 8 with 8 points in this game. But when thinking about if the Pacers made the right choice with starting him or not, obviously the results look good in this game, right? Their starting lineup did fantastic. Like I said, over 100 points for all of them. But that's not the key part of this discussion, right? Another factor in this game that you just saw, even with Mathurin coming into the second unit, Herb Jones is guarding him. The best Pelicans defender is guarding him. Like, there's already a huge level of respect for him. No matter what lineup he's a part of, he's going to have a positive impact on the Pacers. There's a lot of arguments for him to start. That alone says a lot. So dive into the arguments. I've just said a lot of crap for the first minute of this segment. I apologize. So the biggest playing time argument, what lineup Mathurin is in argument, to me, feel free to disagree, we'll get to everything, is playing a ton with Tyrese Haliburton, right? That's a huge, important goal for the Pacers this season. That's the backcourt of the future. They both look uber talented. They both had crazy good games, sometimes at the same time. Like, that should be goal number 1 because 3 years, 4 years from now, and the Pacers are, getting to be as good as they can with the current core that they have, those two will be the starting backcourt at that time. So getting those minutes now, getting those reps together is really important. And they're both really good. So another argument to him starting, of course, is he's really good, right? That makes a lot of sense. So the good arguments are he's a really good player, and really good players start games. And him playing with Haliburton is super important, right? Getting those reps in is important. The argument with the benches are, he gets way more touches, and they're kind of easier touches, right? And that's not good or bad, but getting reps against guys you can easily score on, you get some good habits, you can use those against better players. It's easier to have him be a play finisher off of McConnell and Nembhard, who aren't necessarily as capable of scoring on their own. With Haliburton, he, of course, is a fantastic setup man, but he is also capable of scoring on his own, so there's less sharing opportunities there. And he can still play a lot with Hallie coming off the bench or starting. That's not really a pro in either case. I just wanted to include that when closing this out. And he closes games often, right? He's still with the opening unit to end games. He closed in this game. He had 8 points in this game. He still closed, right? He still shows off his value throughout the course of every game he's playing in. So with those goals in mind, right, how do you maximize his touches? How do you play him as much as you can with Haliburton? How do you make him still play good and develop in this situation that the Pacers are in, where they have a roster of a ton of guards and a ton of bigs, but no wings? Okay, so in this game tonight, Bennedict Mathurin played 30 minutes and 8 seconds, 15 and a half of them, over half of his minutes, he played with Tyrese Haliburton. So coming off the bench does not affect the most important goal, which is get him and Haliburton together as much as you can, right? Whether he comes off the bench or starts, Carlisle still plays them a ton together. And that's not just a tonight thing. That's not just a one game of evidence sort of thing. Prior to tonight, 253 minutes for Mathurin this season, 103 minutes without Haliburton, 150 with Haliburton, right? So the bench is not a hurdle into him playing with or without Haliburton. They're getting him more minutes with Haliburton than without. So you could argue, and I think this makes sense, that him starting would up that ratio to more with Hallie and less without. And that's fine. I think that'd be good, but that would come at the sacrifice of the other key part of if he should start or come off the bench, which is how much he has the ball and how advantageous those touches are. So let's look at stat number 2 about Bennedict Mathurin and how he's playing this season, right? With Tyrese Haliburton on the court and Bennedict Mathurin on the court, Bennedict Mathurin's usage rate is 22.96%. Less than a quarter of possessions finished with him finishing the play. When he plays without Tyrese Haliburton, His usage rate is 31.3, almost a third of Pacers possessions finish with him finishing the play. Almost a 10% difference, right? 9-ish% difference. So he gets a lot more opportunities playing without Haliburton. And I think that is important, getting him the ball in way, not even just getting him the ball, but getting him the ball and letting him finish the possession or try to create or try to get to the rim, do good at the stuff he's been really good at this season, right? So that's the other factor. And so you, the listener, can decide on your own how you feel these should be balanced, right? Should they go heavy on putting him with Haliburton? And then you would be on team start, and I would understand that. But to me, finding the right balance of playing him a lot with Haliburton, which they're doing, he's played more with Haliburton than without, and giving him situations where he can be the lead guy or the play finisher, which he can do better without Haliburton right now, is key to finding the right balance. And so as those numbers kind of show, they're doing a good job getting him minutes with Haliburton, and clearly he is more effective playing on his own, right? He gets the ball less to finish plays when he's playing without Haliburton. So finding that key balance is kind of the crux of the start versus non-start decision, right? On one hand, he needs reps to improve. On the other hand, he needs to learn how to play with Hallie, and that counts as improvement. And the vice versa is true too. Haliburton playing with Mathurin is also a factor, right? And more touches together also a factor, figuring out how to play off of each other, things like that. So what's more important? That's kind of up for you to decide. To me, the balance is the most important part, which is my cop-out way of saying, I don't really know, but I totally get why they're doing what they're doing. Because it's not holding him back. He played over 30 minutes in this game. He didn't even play that well, and he played over 30 minutes, right? Him coming off the bench is not limiting his playing time. It's not preventing him from playing with Haliburton, and it's giving him chances that he would have less of starting. But there is the fact that I haven't said this yet. If he started and they still wanted to give him those bench reps, they could pull him right away. He could be the first guy they take out, and they put him in with the second unit later. But then you've taken him out of playing with Haliburton. So, there's a lot of, tug and pull and whatever, tug of war going on here that you have to figure out the right balance for. And I understand some of you just saying, no, he's good, start him. And that's fine. That's like a fine way to land on this and talk about a basketball team. But your closing lineup's your 5 best players. He's almost always in that. Your starting lineup maybe is not necessarily that. Now let me put one more part of this into your ear. Does it matter? Does it matter if he starts? If he's still playing over 30 minutes, getting a lot of touches, scoring, playing with Haliburton, does it matter if he starts or comes off the bench? Not really. It doesn't matter, right? As long as he's developing and looks good and fits into this role, that's great. And, the elephant in the room is at some point, Buddy Hield, even if Buddy Hield's never traded, his contract is only a year and a half left, right? At some point, there will be a Buddy removal from the starting lineup for Mathurin. That's what it will take to me, right? Because he's already 4th on the Pacers in touches per game. He's already playing a lot. He's already closing games. He's already playing with Haliburton. Like, what more? There's not much more to add to the Bennedict Mathurin plan for development and touches. So is starting him really the best thing? Does it matter? To me, I think what they're doing right now is really good. It's a really good way to get him touches, effective touches with a unit he's clearly good with, while also still playing him very often with Haliburton. Again, he's played more with Haliburton than without. But I understand if someone just says, he's good, start him. I understand that. But to me, what they're doing now makes a lot of sense. And especially when they're starting 5, with Nesmith in there, or tonight with Nembhard, has been working, right? So with Nesmith and Duarte available, lower usage of defenders, that makes even more sense with what they're doing with the starting 5. But, once Buddy's situation is settled, Mathurin should start at that point. Then I will be saying, figure something else out to get him in there, because it doesn't make sense anymore with no vets in the way to make this happen. But I don't see all this tons of value in starting him now that people keep talking about if his touches go way down, right? They have to find the balance of playing with Haliburton and getting him touches. And it's not causing any issues. It's not holding the team back, right? I had someone reply to me on Twitter today. I hate replying to one person on the podcast and wasting the time of everybody else. But they said, it's hurting his confidence. First of all, I won't pretend to know Bennedict Mathurin very well. He's only been in Indy for a couple months. But that dude is not lacking confidence. I will tell you that. And 2, if it was holding back his confidence, he looks really dang good without a lot of confidence, given how his first 10 games of his career have gone. So that didn't make any sense to me. I think what the Pacers are doing now is totally fine. Now, if it turns out that there's a way to give him more minutes with Halliburton and more touches at the same time, that's what they should be doing. But finding the right balance and figuring out his role is tricky, and I think the Pacers have actually done a pretty good job with that, and I understand keeping him with the second unit going forward. Let me know if you disagree. There's tons of ways to do that. 1, comment on YouTube if you're watching there. 2, tweet at me at TEastNBA or this podcast at Locked On Pacers. Actually, those are the main ways. Do it one of those 2 ways. Tomorrow, Eddie Garrison is going to join us. We're talking 10 observations about the Pacers through 10 games as this Pacers team has taken off Thursday. We're talking Pacers Nuggets, what happened against the MVP on Friday. Hopefully, we're talking Raptors ahead of Pacers Raptors this weekend. Tons of fun stuff coming here on the Locked On Pacers podcast this week. Hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. Lots of stuff to dive into after a fun Pacer win. Till then, see you next time.